What is happening, everybody? Up, everybody's having a fantastic whatever day you're watching this. So, I'm doing a two-wheel Tuesday on a Wednesday, a little bit of a holiday in between. So, we're a bit behind, but I wanted to catch up with you guys and talk a little bit about the Suzuki GSX8R. So, I have done a ride-along video, and I've also put out a post-ride review. But what I wanted to do was catch up with you guys. If y'all had any questions, if you guys have one of these bikes, I would love to hear about your experiences with them. And also to go over some stuff on this bike that, to be perfectly honest with you, when I'm putting a post-ride review together, it's kind of hard to get all of my thoughts put together and put on one video where it just doesn't ramble on. In a lot of cases, just having a discussion and a chat about the bike is a lot more productive. And, I can get a lot more out just in this type of a format, I suppose. So I'm going to let a few of you guys get in. I'm going to grab myself something to drink. And then I want to talk to you guys about this bike because it is really, really good. I mean, to tell you. In fact, I'll even go so far as to say this. It's one of my favorite bikes that I've ever ridden, and that's pretty high praise because I have had an opportunity to ride quite a few motorcycles over the past year. And I'll tell you what, we're kicking off the year awesome with the GSX8R. I do have to admit that I had some preconceived notions of this bike, especially given the fact that, we're all so tied to spec sheets. And what does this bike look like on paper? What kind of riding experience do you think that you're going to have with this type of a machine? And I got to tell you, I was so pleasantly surprised. And because I was so pleasantly surprised by this bike, I found myself kind of second guessing some of the bikes that I had given praise to before. And I'll also take it a step further. One of the things that I should have said in my post-ride review is something along these lines. The GSX8R, and I would probably venture to say that the Tuono 660 would fall under this as well, but we're focusing on the Suzuki GSX8R for this chat, and the 8S2 kind of falls in this. That motorcycle is the perfect motorcycle for somebody that does not have an ego. And I mean that in the most just objective kind of way you can put it out there. This bike offers great power. It looks amazing. I love the look of this bike. That kind of chunky, butch-looking little buff motorcycle. It really does. It rides like it looks. It's a tough little bike. But it's perfect for guys that don't have an ego. They're not trying to prove something. All they want is a motorcycle that can basically do whatever they want that bike to do. Be it basically like a sport touring setup or a commuter bike. You can kit the thing out with exhaust and clip-ons and all this other stuff and have a nice little sport bike. But I don't mean little in derogatory. I mean, it's a smaller bike. You're not going to be trying to wring this thing out and make tons of horsepower with it. And again, I can see how well this bike would do in certain circumstances, even better so than, say, a GSX-R600, an R6, or any of these other bikes where you would really have to be leaning on some of these bikes hard, absolutely wringing them out to get the most out of them. Where this bike, you can just go out and have fun, and fun is the name of the game for this bike, because I'm just going to go out there, I'm going to tell you guys straight up, if you are attacking the mountains or the canyons or your B&C roads with a GSX-R 600, 750, 1000, R1, any of these heavier hitting four-cylinder high revving bikes. And I'll even throw the R9, the RCR from KTM. The R9, of course, is from Yamaha. The V2 Panigale. If you've got one of those types of bikes, it's a little bit less work. But I'll put it to you like this. It's like a business once you start getting into the four cylinders, the high winding bikes and things like that. with a motorcycle like the GSX8R, it's just fun. You know that you're not out there to try to set personal best or, nail down a lap time or whatever the case is. You're out there either working on your skill set, learning, getting better with the machine, honing your skills, or you're just out there having fun. And there's a chance that you may have already moved beyond and past the screaming 4-cylinder bikes or the big power twins and triples. You may just want something that's a bit more relaxed, a bit more fun, where you can go out, drag a knee if you want to. But the reality is that you're not out there trying to tear somebody's head off with your bike. So I can really see a place for this GSX8R. And I am sincere when I tell you that I would love to get my hands on one, but I'm a little bit scared to do it. And I'm going to get to why I'm scared to do it here in just a second. Let me catch up with everybody that has left comments. Ryan is in saying RC for the win. Oh, yeah. Bomb Pop Racing. Marco's in saying, hey, B, got an Elbrock supercharger for the 6.4 swap Ram. Very nice. Saying Merry Christmas, everybody. Okay, so why, and Merry Christmas to you. So why would I be a little bit scared to add that bike to my collection? Well, I'll put it to you like this. I can already see that if I picked up a GSX8R, I would probably get 2 of them, not just one. And the reason for that is I would have one for just kind of kicking it. If I wanted something to run into the city with, if I just wanted something that was going to be a lot more of a laid back setup, buy a GSX8R, throw a tail tidy on it, maybe throw a tune and a filter and call it good. In fact, I don't even know if I'd put a tune on the thing or a filter. Just leave it stock, tail tidy, have it look sharp, and ride the thing around just like a commuter, a sport touring bike, errand runner type of a bike. Sporty, but still very compliant. The other GSX8R, because you could do this, given the cost of these bikes being so low, I would kit out with clip-ons, tune, airbox mod, different filter, full exhaust, the whole bit, and basically build, in essence, a killer street canyon carver type of a motorcycle. I'd put this thing in a position where it was about as much power as you could get out of the thing, and I would have a motorcycle that you could enjoy doing irresponsible things somewhat responsibly. And I got to tell you, I don't think that you would be wrong for going for that if you've got one of these bikes. So, but the reason why I'm such a big fan of this bike is the way that the thing puts down power and torque. You just twist the throttle, the bike absolutely shoves forward. And I'm not even talking about wide open. I'm just talking about partial throttle roll on, where you're not really beating up on the bike. You're just trying to get the thing to move out of its way. That's where this bike does so well. So for me, I know that there are much more powerful bikes out there, and there's a lot of cool motorcycles that are coming. But for $9,500, it is incredibly hard to beat this motorcycle. I mean, seriously, for that kind of money, you can't get into the rest of the field, at least in terms of outright cost. The Tuono 660 is significantly more expensive at about $1,500 more, if memory serves me correctly. The next in line would be something along the lines of maybe the Triumph Daytona 660 or the CBR 650. Those are the 3 bikes that might give this bike a little bit of a headache. But the reality is that from just a pure riding point of view, it's going to be real difficult to beat the 8R in terms of overall versatility and value. And so when you look at this bike, though, I will say this: there is one that it's not really even a drawback, but if you are setting yourself a budget, then the GSX8R is the best bike that you can get for less than $10,000. It simply is. It doesn't matter what you compare it to. Any of the sub 100 horsepower bikes, this is going to be the top of the food chain as far as I'm concerned for a street bike. Now, if you're buying this bike for, you are absolutely going to do a time attack. You're going to be doing a ton of track, all that. Okay, I mean, yeah, you're going to have your hands full with any of the other bikes that are out there since they're making more outright horsepower, but you're going to have the benefit of being a larger displacement and a twin. The way these things make power, it's just like putting a Ducati L twin up against a smaller four-cylinder. That's the advantage and disadvantage that the 8R is going to have. Speaking of which, and this is something else that I didn't mention in the video that I put together. This bike reminds me a lot of, and you guys may or may not remember this bike, the old Ducati 848. This bike reminds me a lot of that bike in the way that it puts down power. So I wouldn't say it's a direct line of sight correlation. That's not at all where I'm going with this, but in the same way that those bikes put down power, that's like the 8R. Which is, I mean, again, how much more praise can you give it? But moving just where I was going with this, again, this is why I do this type of video in a live, because, scatterbrained and all kinds of things that I wanted to say in the other videos, but I've got to put it together in a concise way. In a live show, I can just kind of bounce around ideas and I can interact with you. The one issue is, okay, $10,000. That is your cap. Then this is the bike to get. If you can stretch your budget another 25%, now keep in mind, that's a big chunk. But if you can stretch your budget another 25%, there are other motorcycles that start to come available, namely the GSX-R 750 and the Yamaha R9. But this is where you've got to exercise a little bit of caution and common sense. When you get past the GSX8R, the next level is way up here, okay? So you have motorcycles that are about, let's say, 50 horsepower. Then you have motorcycles that are about 100 horsepower, with most of them not having the torque production, or none of them having the torque production that the GSX8R has. There's a jump there, but at 100 horsepower, it's basically you're buying a bike with, in some cases, very similar torque. It's just that it keeps revving forever by comparison. And because of that, horsepower is a function of torque times RPM divided by 5252. And so it just makes more horsepower, but you don't get much more feel out of it necessarily, other than it just keeps pulling, as opposed to you needing to shift at like 8,000 or 9,000 RPM. From the GSX8R, the next level up is a significant jump. That is to say, about 25% more money gets you a bike with about double almost the horsepower in the GSX-R 750. Now that bike puts down about 140 at the flywheel and somewhere around 120 at the rear tire. With everything you can do to a GSX8R, you might get 85 or 90 to the rear tire if you're lucky. So that'll give you an idea as far as the jump to that next level. It's quite a bit. And the money is really all that separates you. And you've got new motorcycles like the Yamaha R9, which again is going to start out around that $12,500 to $13,000 mark. The GSX-R 750 checks in right around that $13,000 mark. All of the next step up bikes from there are going to be more expensive than the two I just mentioned. So you've got to take that in consideration. Is it worth another $2,000 or $3,000 to go from the GSX8R to an R9 or a 750? This is where you almost have to give yourself a reality check, because you need to figure out what you're going to be doing with this motorcycle and how you're going to be riding it. Remember, you can kit the GSX8R out to be a pretty fun, kind of a nasty little tight canyon carver. Not a ton of horsepower, but a lot of torque and a lot of tip-in power means this thing is lively. It would fit in that environment exceptionally well. And again, as a commuter or a sport tour, it's really good. But to get it to that level, if you want to take it a step up, is going to start to cost some coin. So would I say that it's a better value to just start with a GSX-R 750? Well, maybe, but only if, and I mean this is a big if, you are absolutely convinced that you are not going to ride the GSX-8R very regularly and as a commuter bike. And I got to tell you, I don't know that a lot of people have the self-discipline enough to say that. But those that do, and those that have bought the GSX8R and the GSX8S, all of them are coming away absolutely loving that bike. So I would say that if you are in a position where you only want to have one motorcycle, you're budget conscious, you want a bike that you can build either into something that is more sport bike like, or that you can use more as a sport touring bike, it's going to be really difficult to convince me that you could do better than the GSX8R. And I am still not convinced that I haven't figured out a way to get one of those things myself. That's how much I like that bike. But again, the only thing that would keep me from actually picking one up is I would have to be able to justify how often I would ride this thing. How would I ride this bike? And I just don't know that I would ride it enough, or I don't know that I might ride it way more than my GSX-R 1000, and I might start trying to maybe justify moving past that GSX-R 1000 because of the GSX-8R. You might go, oh my God, what are you talking about? Are you kidding me? Well, hang on a second. One of the let me explain to you what I'm talking about. The GSX-8R, that parallel twin with a 270-degree crank, is smooth, and it puts out a lot of partial throttle torque. Now, guys, keep in mind, this thing is just shy of 800 cc's. It's smaller than a GSX-R 1000, yes, but it's how it makes power and how it makes torque. It's all done with this bike before the GSX-R 1000 actually even starts to wake up at around 6,000 or so RPM. Yeah, the GSX-R 1000 is kind of coming into its own, but the GSX-8R is already building and making quite a bit of power. What am I getting at? The GSX-8R is punchier than my GSX-R 1000, just kind of cruising down the highway, and it's a lot smoother too. I know everybody that's watching this video is going, you are out of your freaking bald head mind. No, guys, it's one of the things that I noticed about the bike, and I failed to verbalize it in my ride-along video. I kept finding myself in sixth gear rolling on the throttle on that GSX-8R, and I'm going, man, this thing has got some shove to it. And it's doing it in a very smooth, effortless kind of way with that really fun airbox snarl that it has. And so I'm not kidding when I say this. You will not miss having a high winding 4-cylinder bike if you decide you were like, look, man, I don't want to mess with revving this thing. I don't want a bike that I can only have fun with when I'm railing on it. I want a bike that's fun. Even when I'm not trying to have fun, the thing's still trying to entertain me. That's the GSX-8R and the GSX-8S. With the main thing to remember is that it has practically leader class torque just at a much lower RPM. So it's something to consider. I'm just going to say that. And guys, this new crop of what some have called not so super sports, if they could be more like the GSX-8R, I can see reasons to not move into, say, a GSX-R 750 unless you just absolutely have to have the horsepower. And in that case, yes, by all means, that would be my choice. That's my background, is with GSX-R 750s. And I am on record as saying that one of the fun, happiest, giggle-inducing motorcycles that I've ever owned or ridden is my GSX-R 1000. So when I'm telling you that that is the characteristic of this bike, I'm thinking that that might just be the characteristic of Suzuki's in general. Talk about, it took us 19 minutes to get to my point, didn't it? But that is what the GSX-8R does. It's just fun. It's a happy bike. and it's got this it factor to it. Man, I just can't put my finger on it. You ever notice that? It's like looking at a girl and it's like, man, I don't know what it is about her. It's like she's attractive, but it's not her looks. She's funny, but it's not a sense of humor. There's this the way that it carries itself is like that girl that has an it factor, or anybody that has some kind of an it factor to them. It's like, man, I can't put my finger on it, but damn, I'm just so attracted to this thing. That's the way I ended up feeling about the GSX8R. And man, you'll find this with bikes a lot. This is when I talk about the way that a bike fits, the way that a bike feels when you ride it. There's I think Hard Rock just put up their chemistry. That's really a good way to put it. There's this chemistry that you get with a bike that it just fits. And that's really where this bike comes into play. You'll have to ride one of these things. I'm telling you, you're going to fall in love with it if you do. Leave your checkbook at home. Let's see. Let me get back with you guys real quick. Ryan saying the price tag sell the bike itself. Yeah, it's a bargain, dude. And here's the thing. You get a lot of value for your dollar. You get a TFT screen, various rider modes, a really good quick shifter, up and down quick shifter with this bike. It's so good, and it's so good at being this next generation of that technology. My original experience with quick shifters in general was not very good. They felt very clunky, and they felt like they needed a lot of throw both down and up to actuate. The Suzuki transmission is nothing like that whatsoever. It feels just like a normal transmission. I guess that's about as good of a compliment as you can give any of it, right? The only thing that I found weird is that on the GSX-R 1000, it's always on a 2 to 3 upshift. And every once in a while on maybe a 2 to 3 or a 3 to 2 downshift, it will bobble the shift. It will only do it once. Typically, maybe it'll do it twice, but it's rare. And that's it. But it never really bothers me. It doesn't really ever upset me. It's just kind of part of the it's part of the nature of that kind of technology. I think it's picking up on something I don't understand. I've tried to make it do it more than once. I can't ever force it to do it again. So I don't know. But I can tell you this, the GSX8R, I never had that issue. Hard Rock saying, happy 2025. Yes, happy new year, everybody. Ryan saying the same. Ryan saying, what would the wife say, the Gixxer or the 8R? Gixxer, hands down. Gixxer probably, well, you know what? I'll be real honest with you. She'd go, I don't care. As long as the T-Bird and the Bonneville are available, she doesn't really care. And she really wouldn't bother if I got another bike. It's not that. It's just, you know, I don't, in that, the one that's over there in inventory, I'm not kidding, guys. I was like, man, can I put this thing on my back and just ride home with this? Because you have to remember, I rode my GSX-R 1000 to the dealership to get an oil change. And so, you know, I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm going to go get an oil change. I'm going to see if I can sneak the 8R out and get some content with it. Like, hell yeah, keys, here, take it, get out of here, have fun. And so while the GSX-R was in the back getting its oil changed, I was out on the GSX8R. And I'm not kidding when I tell you the way that that bike makes torque and the way that it accelerates just under partial throttle. And guys, I need to make this super crazy clear. For the street, partial throttle acceleration and partial throttle manners are paramount. They're key. I had mentioned in the post-ride review that I felt like this bike would be ideal for both new riders that are graduating up from, like, a, say for example, a 40 or 50 horsepower bike, and this is their next level up. I would even go so far as to say you could start off with this bike. There's multiple riding modes. And so you could always start out with this GSX8R, or if you like the naked, the GSX8S. But what I also said in that video was, this is a bike that you can buy as a novice or as somebody that's new to this power level, at least, and never get rid of it. Like, this would be one of the bikes that you have 15 or 20 years down the line that you've done everything with. It's been you're going to work, commuter. It's been a bike that you started getting involved in track days on. It's the bike that you learn how to change your oil, or it could be the bike that you put the clip-ons on, your first real sport bike, if you will. Then you could, if you decided to move forward, you could get like a GSX-R 750 or a GSX-R 1000, whatever the case is. I'd probably go 750, just because I'm a big fan of that bike. But you keep your 8R or your 8S because it's a phenomenal commuter. It does commuting and street duty so much better because you just tip into the throttle, baby. You just boop, like this, and the bike instantly it responds and it rewards you with this shove of torque. And again, if you haven't seen the ride along video, just watch. I'm just giggling. And by the way, I'm riding the bike. I'm typically one-handed when I'm riding, and just comfort level and all this other stuff. I'm just tipping into the throttle and I'm having a ball with this thing. And it's so smooth. Again, I can't say enough good things about this bike. And God, the more I talk about it, the more I feel like one of these things may end up coming home. Hard Rock saying, well, you are on the bike and doing the impressions, but I trust your word about the GSX8R, and we can see in the ride-alongs, it is a lot of fun. Now, I will say this, and I didn't mention it in the ride-along or the post-ride. It is probably not best suited for somebody over 6'1" or 6'2". Somebody over 6'1" or 6'2", depending on how you're built, you might have a little bit of an issue with this in the upper body, just with it being too upright. But here's where it will do well. If you have longer legs, or if you're significant lady other, let's say she's 5'7" or 5'8", but she's got long legs, this bike would be really comfortable because its foot position is a little bit lower. So in that respect, it would be a great bike for somebody that's built with maybe a little bit longer legs or a slightly shorter torso. You'd be extremely comfortable on this. But again, if you're over, say, 6'1", 6'2", the reach to the bars is going to be a little bit tight. It's going to be a little bit short. Now, I say that only if you're comparing it to other sport bikes or sport bikes in general. But it sits at that point, it's going to sit for those guys that are taller, it's going to sit more like a standard. For me, I'm just shy of 6 feet tall. I got a 32-inch inseam, and it fits me really well. Even I've got a little bit longer arms, so but it fit me exceptionally well. And then once you take into account the type of bike that you're on, it's actually incredibly good. Oh, and I'll tell you this too, what I also didn't mention, the seating position of this bike with the stock handlebars is eerily similar, like almost practically identical to the Katana with the Sato handlebar setup on it. So that would be kind of the like, I forgot to, I thought about it several times. I kept forgetting to mention that. By the way, just some behind the scenes stuff. This is also on the live show. If you're new to the live show, again, none of my stuff is scripted, clearly. And my channel really is more a background noise generator. I'm talking about cars, could be talking about motorcycles on Two Wheel Tuesday shows. I'm talking about motorcycles almost exclusively. And on Saturdays, I'm typically talking more about cars, but it's really just to have something on in the background. I know a lot of folks that have the live show on, they're working, they're doing yard work, they could be doing whatever. I know a lot of truck drivers at one point would just have this show on while they were cruising down the road. Again, it's just background noise with a car or a motorcycle theme. So if you're new to the channel, you're going, what is this bald guy going on about, yammering on? That's what I'm doing. I'm just making background noise for you guys. But let me get this back over here. Man, I messed something up over here. Timeout. Here we go. There we go. Skids is in. Here we go. Oh, he's got the cadence. Got the ball guy with the shades. I like it. Skids saying, yeah, we know you're a Suzuki fanboy. A little bit. You know, it's not even Suzuki. I used to be big into Honda, and I almost feel like Honda moved away from me. I was a big fan of the 08, 09, 2010 GSX. Well, that one too, but the CBR 1000. But what really turned me, and of course my RC51, but what got me hooked on Suzuki was the GSX-R 750. And the thing that really kind of messed me up was nobody else had that bike. And, there wasn't a ZX75, right? There were 7.5. There wasn't a CBR 750 or an R7 and a half, right? There never was a bike like that from any other manufacturer. And I just absolutely gelled with that bike. So, let's get saying, hey, Ryan, I got out on the Harley Davidson today with some buddies, went for a lunch and 2 hours of riding, a little chilly, but worth it. I've ridden every day this year. I like it. And Ryan, I'll answer that question for Skids. It sounds really good. Say Milwaukee H really wake up with the intake, exhaust, and the tune. So much more fun with the throttle response. Very nice. Gas mileage went down. Not sure about that. Not sure why. Hard Rock saying an 8R looks like a great all-around bike. It really is. Ryan and Skids hanging out. Ryan saying, man, if CF Moto is really bringing a lot of us, bringing a lot out this year, even rumors of a leader bike. Yeah, I'll tell you what. Let me tell you. Okay, so talking specifically about CF Moto and the GSX-R or GSX8R. Man, I'm going to get all this alphabet soup. It's going to mess me up. So CF Moto is a bit of a dark horse in all of this because you've got their new 675cc triple. But yeah, they are talking about bringing out a leader class bike, and it looks like they're gobbling up KTM as we speak. So you've got the RCR that's going to be released relatively deep into 2025, but that is the new Yamaha R9 competitor along with the new V2 from Ducati. So you've got some bikes that are potentially going to hit the market that are going to be really good, with CF Moto's KTM offering being one of the nastiest. And oh yeah, that's one of the other things I wanted to get to. Oh my gosh. So So we've been talking about the Suzuki GSX8R, and I mentioned that it is a it's roughly 776 cc parallel twin with a 270 degree crank. Okay. That architecture has been largely, I don't want to talk down too much about it, but it's been relegated to a bit more stodgy type of bike, right? Like the 8S was one of the first that I feel that I was familiar with anyway, that was more of a hot rod variant of that engine configuration. But KTM has had some pretty nasty parallel twins for a while. The 790, I believe, fits the bill, and the 990, which is, I believe, actually 954 cc's. I don't know why they do. Anyway, the blending of the torquey snappiness of the parallel twin with sufficient head flow, intake flow, RPM to make actual horsepower is going to make that KTM RCR a real problem for the R9. I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to mean it. If the GSX8R ever got an update or an upgrade where it was now the GSX8R, whatever, damn man, all the letters are getting to me. If there were ever if they ever actually bump that bike up to a true, honest to goodness 100 horsepower, which, by the way, with the tune, exhaust, airbox mods, and all of that, I'm talking about at the flywheel. You're not that far away from that number once you kit that bike out. That is going to be a hell of a bike. Anyway, where I'm going with the KTM thing is parallel twin, really snappy torque, throw the horsepower at it that's higher than the R9, by the way, by about 8 or 10 numbers. If that bike comes in at around $12,000, that's going to make the R9's life incredibly difficult. And I can tell you this too, that KTM is going to be exceptionally streetable, as is the R9. I mean, it is using the CP3 triple, but man, I got to tell you that, and this is the other thing. I am really starting to come around to the way of thinking of manufacturers when they're talking about these newer bikes with the parallel twins. They're not quite making the horsepower. They're primarily making a bunch of torque. And why more people are gravitating to that type of architecture over the 4-cylinder bikes. So I'm starting to get it. I'm starting to come around, but it's bikes like the GSX8R that will cement that acceptance more with guys that are coming from a sport bike world and seeing these bikes, not really getting it because the spec sheet doesn't necessarily agree with what they're looking for. Only to ride the thing and find out, oh my God, this thing is really, really good. So anyway, let me catch back up with you guys. Oh, Skids could totally make an argument for the CF800NK. Absolutely. Absolutely. Ryan saying, yep, quite a feisty bike too. Yeah, it is. Yeah, any of the KTMs are going to be pretty sharp. Hard Rock saying, I'm 6'2", but my favorite is the GSX-R 1000B, but I have more experience with dirt bikes. Maybe start with the 750. Maybe. The Suzukis are going to be a little bit more comfortable. But yeah, the GSX-R 1000, really good bike. I mean, really, 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 really good. I'll put it to you like this. I was able to have some fun with my GSX-R 1000. I've got to be mindful of my environment when I'm on that bike though, because I do get a little bit, I'm not as bad as I used to be, nowhere close, but I can get a little bit spirited with that bike. And anyway, there's a couple of little off ramps that I like to hit pretty hard. And in fact, if you ever watch my ride along videos, there's one of the exits that I take. You'll see me get the bike over on the right, and then I'll come up to a stop sign. After a left-hander, there's a left-hander sweeper. There's a couple of left-hander sweepers that I'll hit fairly hard. And in fact, I keep telling you, look, watch the tack on the Triumph Daytona ride along video. Just watch the tack and look where the needle is. And just know that I can ride the GSX-R 1000 harder than that Daytona without pushing it nearly as hard. But yeah, that bike is a lot of fun. I was going to say, Marco, you need to be an advisor for Ram. Maybe we'll see Ram 1500 Scat Pack, especially with old Timmy back. We'll see. I know he's wanting to do some hot rod stuff with pickups, so we'll see how it goes. We do need a modern Warlock. Be on the lookout. That is probably coming. Lots of cool stuff going to happen for Mopar, or for Ram, and Mopar, I guess. But I wouldn't look to the cars to really do you a whole lot of good. Not for any kind of money that would be like reasonable to spend. Skids, this can be Motorcyclist Not So Anonymous. Hi, I'm Skids, and I have a Raging Motorcycle Edition. Hi, Skids. Welcome. Yeah, that's a lot of us, man. I'll tell you, if you're into bikes, you're into all of them, you know. It's rare to meet somebody that has one motorcycle though. But if you only could have one because of space, budgeting, or whatever the case is, that GSX8R would be a great one to have as a only bike. Oh, Ryan, talking about the new truck. Yeah, we don't know what we're gonna have with V8s. I know that Ram is in big trouble. So Skids is saying, I mean, the idea of the Warlock name being thrown around. Yeah, Ram is already in pretty big trouble. So, but Skids saying, and don't forget about the RS660 and Tuono 660. Feisty, great sounding, and quick parallel twin bikes. They are higher than the Suzukis, but man, those are some great machines. Yes, they are. So the Tuono is pretty cool in that it is a parallel twin. It's basically the front half of the RSV4 engine. Exceptionally good bike. And again, this is one of the bikes that, you know, it just revs to the moon by comparison to the GSX8R, where the GSX8R will sign off somewhere around, say, realistically around 9,000 RPM. The Tuonos, they're just now kind of coming to their own in those RPM. So the 8R, a lot more torque down low, but it just does not have the horsepower that the Tuono does out top. And it's got to be smoother than the Daytona because I don't know, the Daytona that I rode, and I did a review on that bike. I liked the bike enough. I didn't necessarily see a problem with it necessarily. The only thing that maybe I should have mentioned in that video was just how buzzy and wheezy that bike seemed to be when you're trying to rev it. Now, that bike had very low miles on it, and I did not want to try to run the heck out of that bike. It, you know, with it still significantly being under break-in, it's, you know, it's a new bike. And at the time, I should say it was a newly released bike. I didn't want to go out and just rip the thing's head off because I didn't really have the environment to do it. So anyway, that bike seemed a little bit wheezy though up top. It was punchy through the mid-range, but nothing like a GSX8R or a Tuono. And then on the top end, it just would not have the RPM to be able to play with how that Tuono, or at least it wouldn't have the horsepower from my experience with it that Tuono would have. But the 8R is so nice, you just roll into the throttle and let it run. But yeah. Oh, Ryan saying the tribe seems more welcoming than the car brotherhood too. Oh yeah, guys, I'm telling you right now, man. And Skid saying, yeah, two-wheel freaks are the best people. Absolutely. Here's the thing when it comes to the car deal, man. I'm kind of sliding out on that a little bit. I don't want it to sound like I'm just checking out, but man, I got to tell you, I've got really nothing to talk about with Ram, with Dodge in general. And I've also got to be honest, man. I mean, I'm not doing any more peer reviews for tuning. I'm not doing any more, I'm not competing anymore with Mopars. And I've competed with Mopars for years and years, on again, off again, quite a bit with the Vipers and the SRT, the Hellcat, the truck. You know, I was doing some kind of track content with these vehicles for years. And man, I got to just tell you, there's no diversity in this. You know, there's no diversity in the cars either. You know, I don't mean for this to sound a certain way, but, you know, with the bikes, I get a chance to chat with you guys from all over the planet, man. I have comments from guys in India, Australia, New Zealand, everywhere in Europe. I've got guys in South America. Brazil was one that popped up. quite a bit from France, believe it or not. But anyway, I get a chance to chat with folks from all walks of life. And with the car stuff, not so much. Not to mention the Mopar community is just kind of toxic by nature. And I'm just, like I say, man, I'm just kind of to the point where with it where, look, if anybody needs help with something, I can steer you in the right direction. But yeah, I just, from a local standpoint, it ain't gonna happen. And like I say, even for the guys that are chasing numbers now, I don't even pay attention to it anymore. I hate to say it. Not to get too far off at Two Wheel Tuesday topics, but I really don't. I don't pay a lot of attention to it anymore. Dodge hasn't given me a reason to stick around, and so I haven't. I've got a Ford F-150. I've got I still got Buffy, my work truck, but I'm just kind of over it, and so that's kind of the way that it works for me right now with the car stuff. Until I'm given a reason to get excited about Dodge or Mopar, getting back into it, I'll be way happier talking about bikes and bringing, right along content. Oh, that's the other thing. So let's get back into two-wheel stuff because look, it's Tuesday somewhere, right? Here's the thing. Obviously the GSX8R was going to be the first bike because I still and did then and still do have a crush on that bike. Next bike that's coming up, GSX-600. GSX-600 because that is the direct line of sight competitor, if you will, to bikes like the GSX8R. Now, I know what you're going to say already. No, it's not. The R9 or the RCR or the V2, those are the real competitors to the GSX-600 or any of the 600 class super sport bikes. You're exactly right when you say that. However, I'm looking at motorcycles that make sense for the street first, and then I'm going to start to figure out what I'm going to do from there. But it's all going to be primarily street bikes. So I want to talk about the GSX-600 from the point of view of how it would compare to a bike like the GSX8R. Which bike is really honestly better for you? I mean, I know that the GSX-600 is about 50% more horsepower than the GSX8R. But would you ever really, truly, honestly notice it? So anyway, that's going to be kind of where I'm coming from when I do a review of the 600. But from there, CB650, the Rebel 1100 is absolutely on the radar. I want to try out these motorcycles with the new automatic transmission technology. The other bikes that I want to try out would be any of the GSX SGX, the sport touring version of the GSX S platform. Would love to give that a shot. I loved my Katana. By the way, it is still available at Stub Cycles. But I absolutely loved that bike. But I think that if you kit it out like a sport touring bike, it's a little bit more that bike's style, if you will. So I want to try that. But there's some bikes that I want to bring to you guys that are a little bit different, stuff that you might not have really thought would have been cool, that I can, bring to you guys. So we'll see about that. This kid's now back to motorcycles. Ryan saying, talking about Mopar lately seems to be more like a D&D night. Fucking hell yes. Damn if you ain't right about that, bro. Okay, so hold on. Let me switch gears real quick. It's just us hanging out right now. Okay, check this out. You could not be further from the freaking... Oh my God, that is the funniest thing. You are exactly right. It's Oh my God, yes, 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 yes. The Dungeons and Dragons of Mopar influencer right now is on full display. Um, it is fantasy, it is wishing, it is like, oh my God, dude, you're exactly right. That is some funny ass stuff, man. Good call on that. Yes. Hopes and dreams instead of what they're giving us. Oh my God. It fits right into because they also do all the dress up. It's kind of funny. They're these Mopar LARPers, these live action role players, which is really what it is. Lightning bolt, lightning bolt, lightning bolt. V8, CUDA. Oh my God. Yes, you're so right. It is like saying, what would you do if you won the lottery? I agree. Hard Rock saying, would you review the H2 if they ever get one? Yeah, I would love to review an H2. From what I hear, most of the guys that, so the H2 makes, not talking about the H2R, but the H2, it's a powerful bike. I mean, no doubt about it. So, it's going to be easily on par with any of the leader class bikes. But yeah, I would love to. Ryan say, we need Professor to do a build a bike series. I've thought about doing that. I've actually thought about going to a junkyard and seeing if I can find like a bike that had been low-sided really bad, and just do a full-on rebuild of something. I kind of, in a way, did a Build-A-Bike series when I did putting the T595 back together again. But Car Wash is in, said, hey, B, Happy New Year. Looking good, buddy. My mom never allowed me to have a motorcycle. I am 51. Never too late to learn. I've been riding since I was literally 5 years old. In fact, I've got pictures in this office somewhere of myself and my cousin. We had some PW50s. All right, saying Ryan gets the best award for best comment tonight for sure. Yeah, bike build series would be sweet. If I could find a bike that, be great to do is if I could find a GSX8R that had been low-sided or otherwise just, an insurance total or something like that. I would actually love to do. This is one of the things that I thought about with the 8R that I thought was so cool is, again, I started off the show by saying that the GSX8R is one of the best motorcycles. It is the best motorcycle for the guy that doesn't have an ego. Like, you're not trying to prove anything. And I got to thinking about it, like, what would be just fun as hell would be to get a GSX8R, put the clip-ons on it, because that for me is just a more comfortable riding experience. That is an ergonomic thing, way more than anything else, but put the set of clip-ons on it, airbox mod filter, tune it, full acro exhaust, and have a bike that would be somewhere around 80 or 82, 83 horsepower to the rear tire. And so I have just recently started doing a little bit of research as far as what you can do to one of those bikes to get real power out of it. Now I know that it's one of those types of bikes where, it's not a real buzzword. It's not like a GSX8R isn't really clickbait unless you're kind of in the space that would want a bike like that. Like, you understand the compromises that you're making for this motorcycle, but you can, when you make a compromise, it means that you're also getting something. It's not like compromise doesn't always mean that you're giving up all the cream, right? The cream of the GSX8R or GSX8S is that it is all exceptionally usable power, like even off idle. Every time a cylinder fires with the 8S or the 8R, it is absolutely a usable power stroke. It's not like a 600 where it's kind of dead down low. You absolutely need to rev the thing out. The 8R or the 8S, there are no wasted power strokes, and that to me is very endearing. But anyway, getting back to the point, where I like to go riding, the average speed through any of the areas we're running through is about, let's say, 100 miles an hour. Like, say you've got a pace of around 90 to 100 miles an hour through the B&C roads that we ride. GSX8R, I keep wanting to say GSXR, GSX8R will carry 100 miles an hour on accident in sixth gear. Like, if you watch I never clipped it, and it wasn't in any of the video that I'd shown, but there's some times where I'm riding that bike and it's all I can do to not, just hoon out on that bike. Anyway, I can park that bike at any of those speeds, not even touch the suspension, just make sure I've got really good tires on the bike. Like I said, RS11s. And I can promise you, there would be some folks get real embarrassed by a really pretty little 8R going around them in some of the areas that we ride. And I'll even take it a step further. On my GSXR 1000, I am very mindful of the type of bike that is. And I'm extremely understanding of other riders that are on the road. That, I don't ever just go and cut anybody's head off. I'm typically really cool, especially if I get behind a group that's maybe not as fast as I am, but it looks like they're putting in work. I'll hold back and I'll just watch them. I'll let them go. And unless I get waved around, I won't pass them. I might be one-handing it. And at that point, I'm just, having a good time, looking at butterflies. Hey, it's a pretty tree. They might be putting in a hell of a lot of work, but I'm not going to freak them out. I'm not going to be the guy that just blasts by them and throws them way off their rhythm, because they could be trying to learn, and I don't want to be that guy. On a GSXR 1000, if I'm on a GSX8R, it is a whole different thing. I get that Chihuahua mentality, dude. Like, I'm on the little bike. I'm not supposed to be doing this. I'm not supposed to be this fast on this kind of bike. I'm gonna prove it to everybody anyway. So I just have to be mindful of that. Oh, how do I say? Build a modded 8R. Skid saying, let me be D&D on motorcycles here for a second. I would absolutely love it if Cali made a proper eliminator with the H2 power plant, which is what it would be very well set for. Would be something worth slapping the eliminator name on. Yeah, it would. I like the old school muscle, like the 80s style eliminator, the Magna, the V45, the VMAX, those are the cool bikes to me. I used to love those bikes when I was a kid. I was going to say, instead of the 500cc thing they have currently, kind of blasphemy calling it an eliminator. Yeah, you're exactly right about that. Oh, speaking of blasphemic motorcycles, I did sit on one, and there is one in inventory, a Honda Fury. Man, I got to tell you, the ergonomics of that bike are damn good. All right. So say what you will about it. I know what it is. I know what it looks like. It's a big old custom cruiser looking thing. I don't know the specs on it. I don't know power, anything else like that. But I will tell you that if you sit on one, the ergonomics are really, really, really good. And I'm sitting on this thing going, damn it, I like this bike, man. It fits nice. It's very, very similar from the factory to my T-Bird, the way that it sits. It's just a little bit taller. My T-Bird's a little bit dropped by comparison, but still, same idea. The Fury, there is one in inventory. And in fact, there's one that's there's a white one. I'll just leave it at this. There's a white Fury in inventory, and then there's a green one, a really pretty green one on the showroom floor. I might see if I can sneak the Fury out for a quick lap. All right, saying torque for days, H2 on a cruiser frame. Yeah, that would be sweet. And look out Ducati for sure. Get you a scout size bagger. Yeah. I tell you what, there are some Indians in inventory over there, guys. So I'm looking forward to getting an opportunity to throw a leg over those bikes as well. So, but with that being said, guys, we are coming up on right at an hour. But what I wanted to do is I just wanted to share some extra thoughts with you guys on the GSX8R. If you've made it this far, you are a trooper. I appreciate you hanging out with us. I do a Two Wheel Tuesday show, typically on Tuesdays. It's Wednesday today, but Happy New Year, 2025. Anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate you hanging out. Wanted to give some final thoughts on the GSX8R though. Absolutely love the bike. The crush is very real. If there were more bikes like that bike out there, I think that you would not hear a lot of complaints that say the R6 or another bike like that is going away. In my opinion, this GSX8R is a far better street bike than any of the high winding 4-cylinder 600s could be. And what I'll be talking about in the GSXR 600 video is how the 600 series of bikes, what their evolution truly looks like, and what it's going to look like realistically moving into the future. I just don't know that they can evolve any farther with the engine technology that we currently have. So with that, guys, I'm going to check out with you guys. Hard Rock saying I'll see you soon. Until D&D night for sure. Ryan. Skids checking in with Ryan. Goldfish voted best in class by MCN. The GSX8R. I would agree with it if that's what they're saying, 100%. But guys, listen, appreciate you hanging out with me. Again, live shows can get kind of weird. I get a little bit scatterbrained on these, but look forward to chatting with y'all on the next one. Guys, get out there and do something cool for somebody. Chances are they need it way more than you know. And with that, I will catch y'all on the next one. Y'all have a great one. Take care.